Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Doctors Changing Medicine podcast. As always, I'm super pumped to be here, and I'm very excited about my guest today, Dr. Stephanie Freeman, and she is amazing. She is a double board certified critical care physician. She has over 10 years of experience as a locums physician. Listen, we have opportunities here. She's a speaker, she's an author, she's a career coach, she's all the things. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Una. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have all kinds of questions, right? Like you had to have seen this coming. I'm like, I get to talk to her today. I'm gonna ask her all the things. So I think my first question would be, why locums?
Yeah,
Right?
because
Like what made you make that decision? You've done it for a whole decade.
I've done it for over a decade because I can't keep a permanent job. I tell everybody I'm unemployable. I kept getting fired from my jobs because I kept refusing to fall into the corporate bullshit, corporate tap dance. I just wasn't the one to necessarily keep my mouth shut in the face of mistreatment and maltreatment. And I just knew that I had other options. I had other things that I wanted to do. And I never really actually knew that locums per se existed because in training, they don't talk to us about being a per diem or locums or a moonlighter. But I always was the doctor, the resident that always was moonlighting during residency. So I
Mm.
always knew that you could pick up extra shifts somewhere, work per diem and moonlight and make a great living. I always knew that. So when I got fired from my first job, contract non-renewal, here I was fresh out of critical care fellowship at the University of Pittsburgh, and I went to do work at my first job at a community-based hospital with a private pulmonary critical care group. It wasn't a good fit. And the contract got renewed, aka I got fired, and I was devastated because we don't talk about getting fired as doctors. Nobody talks about that. That's like the big, that's like a dirty little secret, but it happens all the time. And I just started back into doing some more moonlighting, whatever. Fell into locums when I found out that it was an actual industry, in a $1 billion industry at that. And I've kind of never looked back once I committed to it.
Wow. Now somebody and there are all kinds of people who'll be listening, right? So some people are like, "Oh, locums, I didn't really know that was a thing as a career. Like I could do locums
Right.
here and there." And then some other people are like, "Yeah, but that's just a lot of traveling. I don't know if I want to do that." So I want you to tell me from your perspective because you've done this for over a decade and
Mhm.
clearly you love it. I hear you talk about it.
Yes.
So what to you and in your experience, what is
Mhm.
the advantage of having locums as your career option? Like that's the way I run my career.
It was really funny because in one of the groups today, we were talking about, just all the burnout and the moral injury that physicians are facing as a result of this fourth surge of this COVID pandemic, which is the pandemic that never seems to end because people won't do right. And there was actually an article that was put up that was saying that the critical care doctors have had it. That the moral injury and the burnout with the critical care physicians, we were already on the brink. There was already a shortage of critical care doctors. And now this article was like, this pandemic has just taken critical care doctors over the edge. We're facing burnout at unheralded amounts. And I commented, I'm like, not me. I said, because I realized last year that the medical community doesn't give a damn about doctors, and neither does the community in general. And I realized that I had to put myself first because nobody can care for you like you care for you. So last June, I took the entire month off, Dr. Una. And
I
you know
love
what I
it.
did? And you know what I did? When I decided, and the thing that tipped me over the edge was I was traveling during the height of the pandemic. I never stopped traveling. I was getting on those planes. So when the government shut down domestic travel, except for essential travel, I was still on those planes may have been only one other person on there. When hotels were empty, I was still in the hotels. When when car rental companies consolidated, went out of business, closed after 5 p.m., the counter was closed after 5 p.m. I was still that person arriving to the airport at my destination at 7 p.m. being like, where am I going to get a car at? So I was, leaving the comfort of my home, traveling during the height of the pandemic to go to a hospital, to care for a hospital that didn't have enough critical care physicians to begin with during the height of this pandemic. And they still had the gall to treat me with disrespect. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at all of the social things that are going on that are unvaluing, devaluing Black people and Black lives and Black women. And I said, you know what? I need a break. So guess what I did?
You took a break.
I took a break, because you can do that as a locums doctor, because all you have to do is to give 30-day notice. So at this particular assignment, I had shifts scheduled through December. So what I did come April, I looked at my calendar, I counted out my 30 days, I sent my email, I'm canceling the rest of my assignments. And I did that. And so I had one assignment left at another place that I've been going to for years, and I love that. So I took that last assignment before I took my month sabbatical in June. And my mama was like, where are you working after you work this weekend? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, and you don't care, do you? I said, nope, I don't. And the great thing about it is, Dr. Una, I was able to take that month off, decompress, get my life back together, because I knew we were going to have another surge in the fall. So sure enough, I took June of 2020 off, and I was back working July of 2020. But the great thing was, I was back working in Houston doing locums, 30 minutes from my house, and I didn't have to travel. And that was the great thing about it. This go round, I'm coming off a 3-week break.
How many of these 3 to 4 week breaks are you taking a year, woman?
As many as I want.
And I'm not complaining.
And it's glorious, because now we're in the midst of the 4th surge. Every physician is upset. Everybody is worried. I'm laying in my house on my patio being like, not me. And I go back to work next week. And one of the people said, it's funny in the conversation we're having, she's like, yeah, it's kind of nice when you're doing locums, because you work there, but you don't really work there. And so that's my attitude. I'm like, I don't work here. I don't work here. Y'all can do all of that. I'm just here to work my shifts and go home. And that's what's so empowering. And even though my schedule is booked out through my schedule, I'm completely booked until January 1st, 2022. But guess what, Dr. Una? I'm really thinking about, depending on how bad things get and how I feel, I'm thinking about taking another month off in January, because I can do that, because that's my prerogative. And that's how I'm able to avoid all of this burnout. I'm able to not be so morally injured, because I knew they didn't give a damn about us to begin with. And excuse my French, but they don't.
So you have control.
Complete control.
And that is beautiful. So
it
beautiful.
It is absolutely amazing.
Now, I think that there are many people who have tried to or do locums, but don't quite do it like you. Because I know you have this down, like this is a science. You figure this stuff out. So yes. Now, what are the commonest mistakes you see physicians make as locum docs?
Having the wrong set of expectations.
Okay, unpack that.
This is what has saved my locums career.
Okay,
I never will forget. I was on an assignment.
She's giving us the best stuff, people.
I was on an assignment, and I called my recruiter. I'm like, oh my God, these people are so unorganized, and they don't know whether they're coming or going, and blah, 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 blah. And he said, Dr. Freeman, if the client had everything together, they wouldn't need your services.
Ouch. Okay.
So the mere fact that you are going someplace as a locums doctor means that place is in some sort of a crisis. It means that they are short-staffed. Somebody has quits, somebody is sick, somebody is on maternity leave, somebody has died, or a whole bunch of people have not been hired yet. So that means that there is a crisis in their staffing, which means that's why you're there. And that means that they don't quite have everything together, and trust and believe you will figure that out when you get there. So when you go into a situation knowing that, this is not, they're not going to have everything together, and I'm okay with that. Because as a locums doctor, you don't work there, okay? Your job is to do one thing. Your job is to see those patients within the allocated time and to practice standard of care within the confines of that organization in which you are in, and that is it. And once you fulfill your obligations and you see the patients when you're supposed to see them, and they get the care and they get everything they need, that your job is done. And you can collect your money and walk away.
That is okay, so I've thought about many things. I have not thought about that in that way. Like, you have to have the right expectations. It's a mess. And you go in there. So defining a win is not like I went to this perfect place and everything was organized. I had fun on my shift. A win is they have crises. They want me to fulfill this obligation. I go in there, I do it according to standard of care, and I walk away. And that's a big win. That is so wild.
Always remember this. When you do locums, locum tenens means placeholder. It is Greek.
Got
It's
it.
Greek. Locum tenens. And so the medical community is not the only community that uses the term locums. I looked it up. Itinerant preachers, they used to preach on a circuit and go to different places. They were locums. They were there to hold the place off until the organization could bring in a permanent pastor. So we are there. We are in the place of, we are a placeholder. So as a placeholder, that's all we got to do is hold the
Oh
place.
my goodness, that is so crazy.
Hold the place.
Okay,
Do
guys,
what you
listen,
need
she
to
gave you
do.
the best stuff. Like, I'm not a
Yes.
locums doctor. I'm so excited. I'm like, yes, that is so good.
Just work the shift. Just
Because
hold the place.
there's so much trauma and there's so
Mhm.
much burnout and so much mind drama and so
Yes.
much annoyance that will just
Yes.
come from not having that understanding.
Yes.
That's just and it's unnecessary.
Because we're type A people. Every person listening to this podcast, we are the best of the best. Ever since preschool, we were the smartest people in preschool. Preschool teacher, Miss Sally, would talk to your mama and be like, that Miss Una is the smartest little girl I have ever taught in my life. And so we came up with being the smartest and the best and the brightest. And we were the top of the class, and we were the hall monitors, and we were the ones that the teachers left in charge when they had to go take a break. We're the ones that put people's names on the board. We were the ones that got to pass out the papers. We were the ones that got to help the teachers grade the papers. So we were the best of the best. We are type A's, and we always felt that we could fix things and make things better. We got to get out of that when you do locums. You can't have that attitude.
Oh my goodness. We almost need to charge for this episode. This is so good. And I've never said that before. This is so good. Okay. All right. So that's, oh my goodness, that is so good. All right. So that's one. Now, another thing that someone may be thinking is, and maybe I even think that a little bit, like, well, but are there enough jobs for you to have work enough to make whatever your income goal is as a locums doc, right?
Right. Well, there are, but you have to be creative about it. And
Ah,
you have to have your own strategy, and you have to be real clear about what you are and you are not willing to do. I have 17 licenses. I'll get on the plane in a minute. Bingo. I just
17
I,
people,
I
1 7.
spent 2 weeks in Alaska. I spent 2 weeks in Alaska. And if you think that doing something like that is outside of something that you're willing to do, guess what? There were women physicians there who were married with kids, because they would hop on that plane, go make a crazy amount of money in Alaska for 2 weeks, leave the kids home with their husbands, who, guess what, can make sure your kids stay alive. Your husband can take care of the people he brought into this world. Okay. Because you're off doing something that's good for the family. It doesn't have to be permanent, temporary, but if you can make an ungodly amount of money for working a week, working 2 weeks until something different comes along, then that may be something that you can consider. But granted, I have a lot of licenses. I go a lot of places that people don't want to go. And I'm also willing to be creative about it. So you have to be willing to be creative. And you may say, well, I'm not able to travel. I want to work locally. Define local. Because see, when you live in Atlanta like you do, Dr. Una, and Houston like I do, you can commute to a job and it takes you an hour and 10 minutes each way. But you're technically still local. But then you can go someplace else and be in a smaller community and an hour and 10 minutes away and put you in another state. And technically speaking, that hour and 10 drive, you can still drive home every day. So define local for you. Define what it is you are willing to do. And once you open your mind to those possibilities, more opportunities will come.
Wow. Okay. Just wow. All right. So let me tell you something. Okay. Something honest. I saw that Dr. Freeman was doing a conference. Okay, and it's the Locum Docs Summit, right? That's what it's
Yes.
called. And I was
Mhm.
like, how do you have stuff to talk about for 2 days about locums? Like, what are they going to be talking about, right? And if you're listening to this episode, you're probably going like, yeah, we need a whole conference on this. So guess what? There is a conference. So I want you to tell us a little bit about it and tell us who should be there, right? Like what doctor should be at that conference.
Right. So any physician who is even considering doing locums needs to be there. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if you're a physician who is thinking that you want to make any kind of job transition, because when you're going from job A to job B doesn't start right after job A stops. And sometimes you may need to have something to keep the income coming in. You need to do locums. If you are thinking about transitioning from clinical to non-clinical, sometimes that's a mourning process because we've been clinical for so long and we still want to dibble and dabble in clinical, but we can't have a lifestyle of clinical. You can do locums. Go work someplace 2, 3 days a month and be like, I'm done with this shit. Ooh, woo. I'm glad I don't have to come back. Then you start missing it again. Go back and do that if you're thinking about that. If you are a physician who is close to retirement, I cannot tell you, Dr. Una, how many physicians I met on the road when I was doing locums who were retired, closed their practices down, and now do locums 1 month on, 1 month off, 1 month on, 1 month off. Amazing way to transition from full-time to pre-retirement to retirement. And if you are just somebody who's just curious about what is it, because the second mistake that people make, um, outside of not having clear expectations, is that they don't understand everything that is involved with being a locums doctor. So Dr. Ona, you're about doctors taking control of their finances. You're about doctors having a business mindset. When you are a locums doctor, you are a business.
Yes.
You are
Yes.
a business. You get that 1099 money, baby. IRS and the government are looking at you in a whole different way. So you have to manage yourself as a business. And that takes a different skill set and it takes a different mindset. And we weren't taught that in medical school or postgraduate training. So everybody who wants to be, who has any inkling that they may even consider doing locums in the near future needs to be at this conference.
Oh my goodness. So good. So good. And that's a huge list. And the beautiful thing about, like what you do is that, you figure this out for yourself. You have it down like
Mhm.
it's a science and you love it. The
Yes.
beautiful thing about it is like, someone just listened to this and all of a sudden they have options, right? Because
Option.
you see it everywhere, Facebook groups and all that, where people talk about how stuck they are,
Mhm.
and that bothers me because I'm like, no, we're not. Like, we're not the victims here. We're in the driver's seat. You know what I'm saying?
Never.
And so if you're curious, you should go check it out, right? You should go check it out. So tell us the dates.
The dates are
Um,
October 22nd and 23rd. This is a virtual conference. So you guys don't have to worry about travel because we all know what's about to happen in the next few months. We know we're going back on lockdown. So, but I've already, hey, this is going to be a virtual conference. So you can learn from me from the comfort of your own home, October 22nd and 23rd, with a special VIP day on October 21st. And you can learn more about the conference at www.thelocumsdocsummit.com.
Excellent. And Dr. Freeman was so nice. She did send me a special link where you
Mhm.
could get 20% off.
So the discount code for the listeners is Dr. Una 20, and that will give you 20% discount off the ticket prices.
Look at that. My name goes with discounts. I'm powerful like that.
Yes,
Okay.
you're powerful. Yes, because we're all about it.
I
We're
love
empowering
it.
people together.
I love it. So if you're here and you're like, I feel stuck, I don't know, I'm transitioned, I don't even know if my job is going away because we've seen a lot of that going on.
A lot of
If you
jobs just disappeared.
just
Poof.
disappear. If you're like, I want to start a business, I don't know what it is, but I want to
Mhm.
quit my job. They're just options. So check it
Right.
out. Okay, check it out. And you know, don't not check it out. And the reason why I stopped to say that is because we have we have options, and the more you educate yourself, the more your horizon broadens.
Mhm.
There's so many doctors who are not having the typical experience. They're having the time of their lives. If you listen to Dr. Stephanie, you know she's having the time of her life. And this is not make believe. This is her all day, every day. I follow her on social media. This is her life. And that's the reason why I said, I need you to come on the show. I need to talk about this locum thing. I don't know why you're so excited about it, but people need to know. So this is so good. Dr. Freeman, I usually end the podcast this way. Now, I started this because I'm like, there's a million of us. If we don't like what's going on, we can change it, right? There's
Mhm.
strength in numbers. And I also wanted people to see that our options are limitless. Like, look
Right.
around, see what other doctors are doing. Come to this podcast, and there's so many different versions. Find a version that works for you and roll with it, right? So I tell everybody, I'm like, you have to share the episode. There's a million of us, and we need to know how we can get back in the driver's seat and control our careers like you're doing. So, what would be your reason? What is the reason you give a doctor? And you're like, for this, you absolutely have to share this episode with the doctors in your life.
I had a conversation with a psychiatrist friend of mine, Dr. Centrell Crawford, who is actually going to be hosting a panel at my conference. And I asked her, I said, Dr. Crawford, why do so many physicians stay in bad jobs and bad situations? And she says, it's something to me that blew my mind. She says, because when you're afraid to walk away, you'll say yes to anything.
Mm.
And when you think about how many physicians have felt so unempowered, disempowered, if that's a word, it's because they agreed to do things that they didn't want to do at their job. They were afraid to say no because they were afraid to walk away. So they said yes. And every time you say yes to something that does not serve your spirit, it chips away at you and it causes moral injury and it causes burnout. So the reason why you need to come to this conference is because we're going to give you the tools that you need to be able to walk away from something that no longer serves you. Now, I don't advocate that people quit their jobs. I always throw that disclaimer out there. I don't know what your financial situation is, but I do know this, that you're not stuck. Everything is figure outable. All you need to do is have a plan, and you can utilize locums as a plan to get you from point A to point B so that you won't be afraid to walk away, but you can just walk away in a systematic, organized, structured way so that you can come out better on the other side.
I love it. I love all of it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was
Thank
just so
you for
much fun.
having me.
So much fun. All right, people, you heard the doc. So share the episode, share it with the doctors in your life. Let them know you just need to listen to this. And thank you so much for listening, for sharing, for reviewing, and all of that. And you can take a screenshot of this episode. You can post it on your social media. You can tag me. You can tag Dr. Freeman. Her contacts and all of that would be in the show notes. So thank you for listening. Thank you again, Dr. Freeman, for coming on. And I will see you people on the next episode of the Doctors Changing Medicine podcast.